Hey there guys, and welcome back to Dino Reacts. Let's get talking Resident Evil. So Resident Evil was released in 2002 and it stars Michelle Rodriguez and Milla Jovovich. The movie of course is based on a very popular Capcom series of the same name. Now what I like about this movie guys is right from the get-go, after that prologue, we actually kind of start the movie in very familiar settings. So we're in the kind of Spencer mansion, or I suppose the Spencer estate. It is of course a callback to that original game. Now at the same time we do have a new original character in Alice, and she's kind of this mysterious character that we don't know too much about. She wakes up in this mansion not knowing what the hell is going on. Right away we know this is not going to be as familiar as the original game. When the movie was announced originally, George A. Romero was actually on board to write and direct the movie. So his original script was actually much closer to the game series, as well as that the director and writer of Halloween 4 was also on board at the time, as well as Kevin Williamson. All of their ideas actually involved the Spencer estate and characters such as Chris Redfield and Jill Valentine from the game series. Now at the time, producers of the game wanted to go down a bit of a different route, and talks fell apart with each of them. Instead we got Paul W.S. Anderson's version, which again is different than the game, but it has a lot of those story beats. We get very familiar settings and characters in it. So we get the Umbrella Corporation, we get the Spencer estate, and of course we get the labs underneath Raccoon City. Now as the movie goes on, an Umbrella task force pretty much come into the game and explain that the lab is under Raccoon City. To get there, of course, just like the games, there's a secret room in this mansion that leads to a train that leads to the lab. The lab itself, it's called the Hive, and it's kind of looked after by this computer AI system called the Red Queen. The Red Queen, she was developed in the likeness of one of the original developers' daughter, and she kind of guards the entire Hive, or the labs themselves. So at the start of the movie we do find out that a leak happens in the labs of the T-virus, and rather than the Red Queen kind of notifying anyone, she locks everyone in and pretty much contains the virus. Now this Umbrella task force are sent down there to find out what the hell happened, and unfortunately for them, when the Red Queen finds that out, she also locks them in. I will say one thing I enjoyed with this is the film does build tension quite a lot in those first 40 minutes. Like with the film itself, you don't actually find the zombies until after that 40-minute mark. A lot of it instead is just set up to build story as well as get used to these characters. So instead of seeing these BOWs and these zombies every 2 seconds, instead we get some really good jump scares and some eerie scenes, while also building the story between Alice and these Umbrella task force. Alice herself, she is a really interesting character. She's quite mysterious and she doesn't really know where she is. She's suffering from amnesia, so as the film goes on we find out information as she does. I like that with it, especially because she was an original character as well. She's not from the games, so it's a fun way kind of to develop her character and just get the audience on her side. She's also quite vulnerable at the start of the movie, so you do care for her quite a bit. But sooner rather than later she begins to take over and you find out how kick-ass and badass she actually is. And that goes for Michelle Rodriguez's Reign as well. She is perfect in that role. It's kind of the role, in my opinion, that was made for her, this kind of elite squad member. But when both of them are on screen, they have some great chemistry and some great moments. When we are finally introduced to the zombies, they are not a letdown. Yes, some of the CGI is questionable, but I do like their overall introduction. So at first we only see one zombie, and just like the games, it's a great moment. Before we know it, there are many hordes of zombies coming at each of these characters, and I liked that entire scene, you know, as they're trying to take the zombies out with as much bullets as possible, of course not shooting their head for whatever reason. The practical effects on the zombies are also done quite well, especially in that first introduction to them. Again, look, the CGI is not great. I was looking at a few of the zombies and that CGI has not dated well. One thing I will say though for the zombies, as the movie progresses, for whatever reason, they start to look less and less like zombies. Like in the sewer scene in particular, there's a lot of zombies there which you can pretty much tell straight away they were just extras thrown in. They don't have any makeup on their faces and they just look like regular people. And that's the same for the character of Matt when he discovers his sister. I get what they were doing is kind of building suspense that you don't know is she dead or alive, but given that we saw her die at the start of the movie, it just made sense to me to put makeup on her. Now she has some makeup and her face does kind of look a little bit pale, but just overall she looks nothing like the other zombies in the movie. Other creatures we see in the movie as well are of course those iconic dogs. Now they are great, I absolutely love that they're in this movie. If I had to give them a negative though, is they don't look right. You can clearly tell these are just dogs that got a bucket of blood and guts thrown over them. Like there is no makeup or practical effects on these dogs, it is just a bucket of blood thrown over them. It's also quite well known that the dogs were quite difficult to work with because they just kept eating the blood on their backs. And again, that's why I wish they kind of had some form of practical effects on there, just to look like they were wounded, or they had actually flesh coming off their skin rather than a bucket of blood thrown over their back. We also get the terrifying Licker from the Resident Evil 2 game. I'm delighted he's in this movie. I remember when I first saw him, when I saw the movie originally, I couldn't believe we were seeing a Licker live action on screen. Now I will say though, looking back on it today, yes, the CGI again is questionable, and on him in particular it just doesn't work. It's really dated. He looks more like a PlayStation 2 version of himself. As well as that, although I love the Licker in the game, I really wish he wasn't the big bad of the BOWs. I kind of wanted to see something like the Tyrant or Mr. X in the movie itself, or just something as big as them. The Licker, although he is a great villain and a great creature in the game series, he's not one of the top tier ones. As the movie progresses as well, we also find out how dangerous the Red Queen is. And that's where I'm going to come to the kills in this movie. The kills are great. We get one in particular that's a bit of a callback, in my opinion, to Dawn of the Dead, where one of the characters gets killed in an elevator with a whole bunch of zombies. But at the same time, as I said, the Red Queen takes out quite a few herself. There's a great laser scene in the film that I really do enjoy. It's not very Resident Evil like, as in, it doesn't have these creatures in it, and it is more akin to the later Resident Evil games, but I still enjoy it. The kills in that scene are so unique and cool, particularly the one where the kind of leader of the team itself just gets sliced into multiple different little pieces.
Open the door! I'm trying! We're trying harder! It's coming back!
I do also like the back and forth between the characters and the Red Queen herself. The little girl who plays her does that whole role really well. I actually wish she was in a lot more of the sequels instead of the other villains we got. There's a great mix of horror and action. This movie definitely has some great action set pieces, but at the same time they are great at building tension. I will say most of that tension for sure is in the first half of the movie, where we don't really know what's going on and what's happened down in the hive, but at the same time there's quite a few jump scares in the second half that work really well. I also like the reveal of the villain, the kind of main villain I suppose in this. Every single Resident Evil game has a human villain. You got Wesker, you got Chief Irons, you got Birkins, and we get the exact same thing here with Spencer. I do like his whole storyline with Alice and just that twist that comes towards the end of the movie. Now, the whole storyline with Alice at the same time is set up really well. There are many points in the movie where you actually do question how involved she was with the events of the outbreak. So I did really like that. I like the back and forth between her and Spencer, and their kind of final scene they have together where she picks up that axe and goes to the train. Overall, look guys, this is definitely one of my favourite movies in the Resident Evil series. It's definitely one of the better ones, and I think a lot of that is done with giving us proper character development, building a really good story, and sticking to those horror elements that the game originally had. The action in this is done really well, but as I said, it's quite balanced with those horror tones. The characters themselves, Milla Jovovich particularly and Michelle Rodriguez, both of their characters work really well on screen. It is unfortunate kind of what happens to Rain in the film, because I do wish we actually saw her for all of the other sequels. The last act of the movie as well, the entire kind of train sequence, it was so similar to Resident Evil 2, which I really enjoyed. So there's a lot of elements to the games in this that you can enjoy, even though it's a different story and different characters. And of course that final scene with Alice in Raccoon City and kind of seeing the destruction of what's happened sets up the sequel really well. Even if you didn't enjoy that movie, that last scene alone will get you on board to pay a ticket to see the next movie. If you haven't seen this movie, guys, definitely check it out. But if you have seen it, let me know what you think of Resident Evil. This is just my own review. I will say I do really enjoy this one. Is it the best Resident Evil film that could have been produced? No. There are quite a lot of times when I watch this movie that I kind of go, oh, they could have gone here or they could have gone there and made it similar to the games. But with this whole Resident Evil series, this is definitely one of the top 3 for sure. It might be the best one in the entire franchise. But guys, what did you think of the movie? Are you a fan of this Resident Evil, or do you wish they stayed closer to the games? What's your favourite movie in the series? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, guys, if you can, of course, subscribe to the channel, give the video a big thumbs up, and follow me on social media. Next up, I'm going to be doing the sequel to this movie, Resident Evil Apocalypse, so stay tuned for that one. But until next time, Heidi ho.